I think this is a very important session. It's, I think, going to be a very, very informative session. I'm personally looking forward to listening to, like I said, the esteemed speakers. When I was asked to chair this, I was scratching my head and saying, you know, coming down from Washington to India is always a good holiday, but, you know, what is the point of doing something like this? And I think if I can take back through these sessions that we have, maybe two or three things, because at least I feel that generally if you attend a conference, there may be, the attention span is to take back through two or three key messages, or maybe three or four key messages. I think the Dalai Lama left some very interesting points that are worthy of noting. But I think, you know, one of the messages to me of being politically engaged, and I have a United States perspective, so I can't give a whole wide world perspective, is that political leaders of, let's say, the Hindu faith have to have more confidence and have the more bigger ability to say, talk about their faith. It took a person who was not born in India, she was born in American Samoa, to say that she's going to take oath on the Bhagavad Gita. She's the first Hindu member of Congress, and she's not even Indian. And she said she has talked about doing this because she believes that the members of Congress in the United States, we call it members of Congress or legislators there, need to understand what it is about the Hindu faith, because there are 1 billion people around there, and if she doesn't talk about it, they won't understand that. And I have to tell you that 6 years ago, when the first time a Hindu prayer opened the US Senate, there were a lot of people in the audience there that booed and shouted, and there were a lot of ugly emails that went about. And I was thinking, if this had been, for example, a Jewish prayer or a Muslim prayer, etc., you wouldn't have done some kind of a messaging like this. But I put the onus on us rather than on them, because if more political leaders who are running for office were to talk about their faith openly, I think you would have a lot more, again, I'm giving an American analogy, understanding that Hinduism is not a cult or not some of the things that are perceived about. So I think if we can, at least the leaders who are here can talk about some of that, that a message that can go out. I think the second part would be a network of leaders who share a certain faith. I mean, you look around certain countries, I would say maybe not as much in the United States, but there are certain countries where there is either a political discrimination if you are of a Hindu faith. There is obviously a persecution that happens sometimes when you are of a certain faith. You need leaders to stand up. I can assure you, if a Jewish leader has some persecution, a large number of Jewish leaders are going to scream anti-Semitism around the world. I think that needs to happen for leaders here around the world. There are so many leaders who are of this faith. They need to kind of have a network to talk about that this is not right. And I think by doing that, there is no negative in it. There is all strong positive, because there needs to be that network that people can fall back upon. And I think the third perspective would be that the leaders, like some of you and others and me, should encourage the young generation, because there is a session that we have on the youth, to talk openly about faith, to mentor them, and to make them understand that. Now we have a lot of people running for Congress in the United States, young people who are running for Congress. We have people running for governors. We had a candidate who ran for governor of California. We have a person who's going to go on the Supreme Court. There should be the ability, and these are all second, third generation Indians, people of Indian origin. So they should have the confidence that they can talk about their faith. They should not duck or hide as to what their faith is, because I think you heard some of the leaders say 1 out of 6 people in the world shares this faith. So there has to be some confidence. So I think those are messages, at least I hope, that I can take back. We have a tremendous group of panels, and because of maybe the cozy size of our room and discussion, we can have a lot more interactive sessions. We have obviously this session, which um, is, you know, going to start in a few minutes, but then we also have a session later on at 4:15, which is basically political institutions in Western democracies, US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Netherlands. And there are very, very good speakers in that session too, and they're going to talk about that. And then finally, we have tomorrow morning, again, we begin with united efforts in adverse and complex political situations, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Indonesia. And that's a very interesting session. It kind of relates to the topic I talked about, that when there's adversity, there need to be other leaders who stand up. And then at 11:15, there is a session on strategy for safety and security for Hindus in hostile environments in countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. And then 2 o'clock we get together again, and at 2:30 there's a session on developing a common strategy for safety and security of Hindus worldwide, where we have chairperson Mr. Shri Ashok Chogle, who's going to talk about that, and there will be a discussion after that. And then you have a session on youth, brainstorming youth in politics, training and mentoring. And after that, obviously, the session ends. So we have some, I would say, remarkable sessions with remarkable speakers, and I hope that you can interact with them, but I also hope that you can network. And I believe a network can be created where people can share ideas, share relationships, as I said. That's what we really hope to do within the organization that I work with. The session that we're going to talk about is creating common political platforms in Girmitia countries. And we have Ms. Shri Ravi Deo from Guyana, who is the moderator and chairperson. And I'm going to basically hand it to him to take over from now. And my job is to make sure that this room gets filled so that we have a real good dialogue. But I think it's not, remember, it's not quantity, it's always quality. It's always quality. Ravi, I'll hand it to you. You're a wonderful group of speakers, and thank you all for coming. I know you could be in many other places, but as I said, unless you have political empowerment, you have political freedom, you have democracy, none of those things about free media, business, etc. current time. So Ravi, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for introducing us, and my task is fairly simple. One is to introduce the topic of politics in the Girmitia countries. The term itself, Girmitia, comes from the word agreement in English, but it was interpreted by the individuals from the Bhojpuri belt as Girmit, so hence the term Girmitia. It is used mostly in Fiji, but in the wider diaspora, the Indian diaspora, we have come to understand and accept the term. So these set of people, these set of Indians, these set of Hindus are a bit different from other countries, and I'll tell you why. They were brought in after the abolition of slavery in the Caribbean, for instance, or in South Africa when it was seen that sugar can be profitable, also in Fiji. In the French islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique, they're totally from the south, and those customs, even though they've become Christians, they exist in almost pristine form. The other thing would be that those of us in the Caribbean, we're almost stuck in a time warp, a time zone of 150 years ago. And it causes great consternation sometimes when people from India visit and they don't practice, the customs we are practicing the exact way we would do puja, or the exact way we would, perform our various rituals. India has moved on. Well, to us, it's not moved on. They have moved away, but that's a matter of interpretation. Now, in terms of politics, basically, when we were brought into these countries of Suriname, even in South Africa, Guyana, Trinidad, they were brought in with such numbers that for the first time, we were not, as in Africa, we were not interlopers. We were a substantial block of the country. In Guyana, we would soon be a majority. In Trinidad, a substantial plurality of 40%, they're now 50%. And in Suriname, about a third, I believe, 25 now. So in South Africa, of course, in numbers, it's all over 1 million, but yet, because a larger country, but still these are substantial numbers. Therefore, in terms of a politics that was based on the liberal notion of democracy, where you count noses, it did begin to matter now. In the past, it did not, because you were the lower rung of the ladder, the social ladder. You were brought in after slaves. You were placed in that position, both culturally, socially, politically, and whichever other method. But pretty soon, after World War II, when the metropolitan countries decided that they would give quote unquote independence, then this whole process of mobilization begins. And in democratic mobilization, you look for interests. So it is not something that somebody conspired to do. In all countries, you will mobilize along common interests. It's the rational thing to do. Rational choice theory tells you that. So when John F. Kennedy was running for the president in America, most of the Catholics in America voted for him, even Irish Catholics. You had a point of commonality. So in the Girmitia countries, when when the modernization in terms of political participation arrived, the parties, some of them attempted to be what you call national parties, but inevitably they also had an ethnic component. There were Indian parties in Suriname, Javanese parties. In Guyana, the first party that was formed attempted to overcome this by calling itself a Marxist-Leninist party. So therefore, categories like ethnicity and race are epiphenomenon, and it wasn't supposed to exist, but it sure did exist, I'll tell you that. And basically what happened was that you had so-called national parties that were really agglomerations of ethnic groups. So the People's Progressive Party in my country actually was studied and very carefully arranged, that the leader was Chedi Jagan, who was an Indian, and he had an African who was his chairman, Forbes Burnham, London School of Economics graduate. You had a Chinese, you had a white, you had an Amerindian. The native Indians are called Amerindians, American Indians. And so you had about 6 different races. In fact, Guyana calls itself the land of 6 races. So the point I want to make then, and I want to hand it over to our panelists, is that the politics in these societies became known as what is called the politics of plural societies, democracy in a plural society. Because what we were taking is a model, a liberal model of political participation, where the individuals were supposed to make rational choices and vote according to interests. But that premise assumed that the people were homogeneous. However, so therefore you would make rational choice. So there was always a pool of swing voters. So typically, if you had 2 parties that presented 2 choice, then depending on the stand of issues, a particular bloc called a swing vote would either go one way or the other way. So what you had was a centripetal effect, meaning that it tended to pull the politics towards the center. Whereas in plural societies, since you were not voting according to interest in terms of outside interest, economics or otherwise, you were voting for your group, because it's called, in America they call it the black voting heuristic. You vote for a group because you get benefit. You become a member of the group that's ruling and what have you. So here in that society, the liberal premises of democracy breaks down. So what you may have parties claiming to represent all the groups, a multiracial party. But inevitably, within the different ethnic groups, you would have what you call flank groups. And they would pressure. The Indian group would call for more benefits for Indians. The African group in my country would call for more African groups. And so the political parties tend to move apart because you have to satisfy your constituency. The basic message of politics is that you have to do something for your constituency. So you have a centrifugal movement in plural societies. You tend to move away. So here again, and I'm sure our panelists will talk about this, how do you reconcile within this liberal order that has taken over the world after the Washington Consensus, where this is how politics is played? There's no other way, right? Fukuyama says it's the end of history. there's no other politics. So how do we play it? And I would like to pose another question. I'm sure it will be taken up and dealt with to our two other panelists. Then I'll give my talk about Guyana particularly. I'll go not in the order here, but I was taught as a young man in our culture, you say Sita Ram, Radhe Sham. So the female goes first. So I will call upon our female presenter here, and Ms. Santosh Vinita Kalyan. Acha, did I say it well?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
May I
You will certainly go, please.
I'm going to do
That's all
that. Good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to address you. My name is Santosh Vinita Kalyan. I'm a member of Parliament in the Parliament of South Africa in the official opposition. Thank you. I am also a member of Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament. That is Africa's version of the EU, where 53 countries in Africa come together and we have a parliament there. Now, I've told you who am I, but let me also tell you how difficult it is to be an Indian woman in politics in South Africa. It is extremely difficult, and of course, being in the official opposition, which party has predominantly, when it started off, it's called the Democratic Alliance, had only white members in it. Helen Suzman was one of the lone rangers in Parliament, and the party started to grow when democracy came to South Africa in 1994. It started off with 7 members, and in 1999 we went to 38 members, and in 2004 we went to 60 members, and in the last elections this year we are now standing at 102 members. As the opposition, I am the only Indian woman MP for the opposition for the past 16 years. Now that begs the question, why is it that Indian women don't want to get involved in politics in our country? Representation in the ruling party of Indians is only 5. In my party, we have 3. In the Inkatha Freedom Party, there's only 1. And National Freedom Party, that's 1. So that makes it under 10 represented in the National Assembly. And I told you I'm the only female. Now, in voting, when we go and do electioneering, okay, the Indian vote, you called it the swing vote. It's a very fickle vote, because every party that goes to that Indian household, they'll say, yes, we will vote for you. Don't worry, we will vote for you. And my party has benefited from that swing vote. But they're reluctant to carry a card to say, I am a member of this party. Very difficult to sign up membership. On voting day, we know that they will come out and they will vote the right way. But it's extremely difficult. Now, having lived through apartheid myself, and knowing what it meant to be in apartheid. The other day I was walking past, I went to the Western Cape High Court to listen to the the Diwani case, Shri and Diwani case. As I walked past, now on the road, as a monument are the benches that in apartheid era only white people could sit on. And the signage there says, only for Europeans, no non-whites, and you couldn't sit on those benches. There were many things that I couldn't do. I couldn't go to the certain beaches. You had to go to the Indian beach. Yet all the water flows together, but the whites were one side, the coloreds were one side, Indians were one side, and Africans were one side. All same stretch of beach, but compartmentalized. So it bothers me. Why is it that South Africa has got the second largest community of Indians outside of India, and yet they battle to establish identity within the country? I'm a 4th generation South African. So I'm born and brought up in South Africa, you know. I love India, but, you know, South Africa is my home. I'm South African first, Indian second. So that is a problem that I think I have as a politician. And in my own way, when I stand up and speak in Parliament, I wear my traditional garb. When I end a speech, I always say Om Shanti. You said that the lady wanted to put her hand on the Bhagavad Gita. When I went to Parliament, I said, I am not going to uh, um, take the oath. I will affirm, you know. So in my own way, I am making, on a political platform, taking a stand. But in South Africa, the Hindus are fragmented. We have the Hindu Mahasabha, then you have the Tamil Federation, then you have Muslims don't regard themselves as part of the Indian population. Very strong Indian component as well, a Muslim component in South Africa. I was listening to him talk earlier about the rituals. When Indians come to South Africa, Indians from India come to South Africa, they are surprised at how we are more Indian than Indians in India. We are fastidious about rituals. We are fastidious about celebrations, okay? Fasting, you know, fast on Monday, fast on Tuesday, fast on Thursday, fast on Friday, you know. Lots of, look, earlier when His Holiness was speaking, he said, you know, people need conviction. They need a starting point to hold on to. And if they hold on to an idol or they hold on to a ritual, it starts to make sense in their mind about it. And I suppose as you evolve, you start to let go of those practices. But we are extremely fastidious in South Africa. Partasi is observed with absolute discipline. That's the month in the Tamil calendar. You spoke about the Kalima prayers. We have two in Durban. I'm from Durban, by the way. We have two dedicated temples at which, at Easter time, the Hindus flock in their hundreds to go and pay respect, and, you know, with all the rituals. So, as a Hindu and as working in a political party where there are mainly white people, there are some African people, and as I said, you know, 3 Indians, practicing my faith and my belief and my rituals, I can tell you, is not a problem. When I went there 16 years ago, to the opening, my husband and myself went, and an Afrikaner man went straight up to my husband and he shook his hand and he said, "Oh, pleased to meet you, you're a new parliamentarian." And my husband said, "No, she's the parliamentarian," and he didn't know what to do with me. But he, when he left Parliament, he used to always laugh at me when I wore the dot. He used to say, "That's a full stop. Why are you wearing that?" You know, I said, "Well, that's exactly why I'm wearing it. It is a full stop." But by the time he left politics, he understood who I was. He was Afrikaner. He would not speak English. He would speak to me in Afrikaans, and I would reply in English. And I taught, and in the caucus as well, you know, they know we got 11 languages and Hindi is not one of them. Regrettably, the language is on the decline. It used to be taught in schools, but now because it is so specialist, very few pupils are taking it, so it's being phased out. On the other hand, there is this Hindu renaissance that I see amongst the youth. It's got nothing to do with Bollywood, but I think that the Hindu youth are now starting to see that if they have an identity and that they can hold on to, the Indians in South Africa make a very strong economic contribution to the economy of South Africa. In fact, there is a group of African persons called the Maibuye Forum, which was established last year. and they are absolutely anti-Indian. They say they aligned to the ANC, which is the ruling party, but the ANC has distanced themselves from them. This group, actively in the newspapers, in radios and everything, they say the Indians have benefited. They benefited in apartheid time, and now they're benefiting in the new democracy. Indians are getting too many tenders from the government, and therefore no Indian must be awarded future tenders. That's their thinking. So, of course, we're all jumping up and down and, saying that this is hate speech, this is racism, and so supposed to be Rainbow Nation. ANC is distancing themselves from it, but not doing anything to close it down. As a Hindu woman, being a migrant worker also poses a problem, because initially when I became a member of parliament, there was suspicion that you leave your home, you're not the woman in the house, you're not the traditional caretaker, caregiver, chief cook and bottle washer. You go off to Cape Town, you're there for the whole week, and house is running without you, children are running without you. I say I have time constraints. So I said about the threat that we have, and that Indians are not active in politics, and that is a concern. But they're very active in keeping the Hinduism alive. My only difficulty is if we can unite all under one body, so that we don't have Tamils and Hindus. We had a huge problem about when it was Diwali. Traditionally, South Indians celebrate on one day and North Indians on another day. And this chairman of the South African Hindu Sabha took an arbitrary decision that Diwali will be celebrated on the 21st. So it buggered up the plans of the North Indians who had all put in leave. We have to put in leave, by the way. It's not a public holiday, but it's recognized that it's a celebration. And this caused a huge uproar, that he had no permission, he had no mandate, and yet he made a decision for us. Anyway, my time is up. I love talking, but I will take questions later.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Shri Ashwin Adin, and he's the Minister of Education and Culture from the government of Suriname. Suriname. He's Suriname, next to Guyana on the top of South America.
I already heard the question. Where is Suriname? So maybe I can answer that question first. It is, of course, a country in the Caribbean. It is part of the Caribbean as much as it's part of South America. It is a country next to Guyana, next to French Guyana. It is in between. And its population is about 600,000. Only 600,000. And the Hindus has a population of about 125. 125,000. Although in square miles, you can say it's a country that is as big as the UK, something as big as the UK, but very small population. I'm Minister of Education and Culture. We call it Education and Community Development. I'm Minister of Education and Culture there. Also in the Organization of American States as Chairperson of Ministers of Education. My work, I will also talk from a background of the Sangha, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangha, the Sangha Parivar that has been in Suriname for about 17 years now, from 1997, where I grew up as a Swayamsevak, as a Karyakarta. After doing my Tritiya Varsha in Nagpur, it was done as a Pracharak in Suriname. And also as VHP, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, which I am now as a president there and there for Vishwa Hindu Parishad in Suriname. Because the only 5 years we've been active in Vishwa Hindu Parishad Suriname, in Suriname itself. And it's done under the name Nationale Hindu Raad. It's means something in English like National Hindu Platform, National Hindu Council. Now the Hindu community, like I said, is about when you look at it indeed from a religious point of view in faith, and that is how they classify us, is about 19%, or let me just get that right, 22.3%. Uh, and I want to take one step back because I cannot talk a lot about Suriname itself. And let me just indeed mention a few things. I did have my oath done on the Bhagavad Gita.
Wonderful.
Yes. And in Suriname, I must say that positioning of Hindu society and Hindus in Suriname is very they are very well positioned. Maybe it is because we are such small scale and in population. We have a republic, it's a democratic republic. You have a parliament of about, I think, 52 seats. Concerning culture, and after the 150 years, we can well establish that we have been able to conserve our language. And the language is Bhojpuri, mixed Audhi, mixed Maithili, that we are called in the Suriname name Sarnami. And it is still preserved. They understand Hindi, they understand Sarnami, they understand Bhojpuri. We have been able to consolidate a lot of days, national days, like Holi and Diwali. 3-4 years back, we made Diwali a national day. We have, of course, Idul Adha, Idul Fitr is also there. But concerning politics, it is not but it's okay. It's an okay sign that we in politics also have a very proportional 50%, you might say, of participation in parliament, be it coalition, be it opposition. That is a little bit the background of Suriname. But what I want to put forward today is taking one step back and seeing the speakers very inspirational to me this morning when we had or Dalai Lama or Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangha ka Sarsanga Chalak or Ashokji Singhal. And I want to put this forward that through the 17 years that I've worked as Sangha Karyakarta, as Vishwan Parishad, there are some challenges that I see, and when we talk about politics, we can talk long about politics, of course, but the political view that I think that we need and the challenges that comes with them are threefold. That we have, that I personally and with our community in Suriname have seen. The challenges that we see is, first there is a need for what we call a clear geopolitical vision of what we as a society should have. You see, we started as a civilization. We have a universal, a spiritual view of life. We want to promote that. It is like a movement coming from the rishis and the munis that were doing tapasya on the Sindhu, later called Hindus. And this view, this universal view that we try to bring and inspire the rest of the world, that's what Sudhaiva Kutumbakam is one family. And we have all kinds of values and tradition like Jiva Jiva Shajivanam, live and let live. And when we try that as civilization to promote that, in the modern context we see that we have grown back from being a civilization to being a community, a society, maybe an organization. That are the terms that people understand. They don't understand anymore the broad Hindu way of life and the civilization that we are and that we try to promote through our values and our universal philosophy. So in a sense, the question has been for us that in the past in Suriname, how did Hindus come to be got this far? Preserving language, being in parliament. We saw that the community itself, the Hindu community there, had a goal. It was a simple goal actually, that the generations before put forth to their generations after them. They said, where these Bakras, we call them Bakras, but we were the colonists, the people from the Dutch colonists, and also our African brothers that are there, because it's a plural society, and said, where they are now, our children should be there in so many years. It is like a goal set in it is a spirit that was in the Hindu community all those years. And that worked from generation to generation and said, you should become a doctor, you should become an engineer, and you should be in politics. We should be, usi sthar pa aana hai jahan wo aaya. It should be there. They should be there. And that kept the progressiveness of the Hindu community alive. And you see nowadays when you see 50% or more in politics, it is because of that goal. Now the danger that we see, that we have been seeing the last few years, is that this goal has been reached. They have been able to come to that situation, to that the contribution that we wanted to make. They are in politics now. They have their Hindu traditions and they are well respected. And that's where it stops. And then when it stops, and a community stops having a common goal, a very clear goal, then you see the westernization, this culture of media coming in, and the real universal spiritual vision and the traditions go on the background through the other wave that is coming now. We have not set a new goal. The old goal that had been reached, we have to set a new goal. And the conviction was then with the Hindu Parishad Suriname that this goal should come from the larger global Hindu family. It should be a geopolitical view and a vision that we should create of what the Hindu society, first as civilization, now as big community and organization. I want to use the term organization should put forward so that on the national level we can translate that into achievements or goals that we can set for our own community. And that's why I want to use the word organization. Because from a civilization, in the modern term, we have been left with an organization. And the need to organize is something I want to stress. The first one is this, so I put forward the first challenge, political challenge, comes from this geopolitical view that we have to create and be able to organize in three senses. Of course, the word organize, you can translate in three senses. The first one is what we call the institutional organizational conception of the word organization, of the term organization. That is that the organization is an entity. We as a whole family are an entity. And every social entity must be able to create value and distribute value. And if we do not put that as a clear vision of what the Hindu organization, the world organization is able to create as value and to distribute as value, the value creation should be in the old roots that we have, the universal vision, the spiritual vision, these norms and values that we have. That can be the value creation that we have to put forward, because in a plural society, this becomes a challenge. We have to be able to tell to the other societies, this is what the Hindu can contribute to your society, to the national, to the countries, as we are constituted as democracies and republics. And so that is the first organizational conception of the word organization. The second one, the challenge that I see, is in the more of the, what you call, the instrumental organizational conception of the term organization that we have. And that is that we need a structure. We are a family, but do we have a structure, a clear structure of how we work? And the procedures and the boundaries of our responsibilities. I have been in Sangha, Parivar, Rashtriya Swayamsevak, Vishwa Hindu Parishad. And all these organizations are doing well work, or doing good work. These are organizations as parts of one big family. What are our responsibilities as organization? Our clear understanding. And this understanding has to you have to be able to show this view to other societies as well. They have to see us in this clear view of structure and organization that we are in, and be able to understand what we do, and that we are not discriminated because we have a clear vision of who we are. A geopolitical vision, well organized, as a social entity, creating value for the world, on the national level for society. But we have a clear structure. We have procedures, we have responsibilities in the organizations that we create for this upholding of the universal vision. And the third is the process-oriented concept of what the term organizations mean. And that is the processes, the activities that we do. The World Hindu Congress is a platform, as these are different sub-platforms that we create, so that the world knows what Hindus are doing. The world knows there are platforms where we can share the vision with the world, but in our own community. So in this sense, I see the challenge. The first challenge is the need for this geopolitical view and vision. And that the vision should be sufficient of us, clear thinking of who we are, actually, and how the others should see us as well, as a clear structure, as an entity, as an organization, well organized, doing these activities. The second challenge what we have established and seen is the need to fill in these gaps. Now, if we have this clear structure, we have to be able to say, we have to act upon this and fill these gaps. We are well on our way on activities, but we need maybe more activities. We have our traditional Diwali and all these activities that we know Hindu society at large and at universal and at country level is doing. What are other activities that create more value, that show the structure, that distribute the value, and that do more activities? That is the clear. We will need to fill in those gaps to be able to say we are progressing on our way. And the last challenge would be to act. Of course, seems only maybe trivial, but Uttishta Jagrata Prapya Varani Bhotata, just like Vivekananda said, we should stand up and work until the goal is reached. And in that sense, and Guruji said it well, Guruji, what I mean, Guruji is from Rashtriya Seva Sangha, second Star Sangha Chalak, Madhav Sadashiv Golwalkar. We should not, Golwalkar said, we should not act reactively, but we should act actively. If we say dharmo rakshati rakshataha, dharma eva hato hanti, dharmo rakshati rakshataha, we should not fight against, or we should not hatya karna dharma ka, to hame hatya hoga. And we protect it, then we shall protect. But what is, when you say, what is dharma? Uphold and support. That which upholds and supports. So if we do our dharma, act upon, to protect that which upholds, means to do also what upholds. So to protect what upholds, to say protect dharma means to do your dharma. That is the first thing. That is the active response, not the reactive response. They are breaking down our mandirs and they do these things. But are we doing really our dharma? Are we really sincerely doing what our dharma has told us to do? And the second is, when you say you protect that which upholds, then you protect. First you do yourself, your dharma. Protect the other that also upholds your dharma. That is your Hindu brethren. And of course, all the bodies and the activities, be it mandirs and everything, then it comes as a third cherry. Protection of these places and these traditions. But the first one is, okay, should we do our own dharma? And then protect as a community ourselves. That is what I see as Rakshati Rakshata. And the act upon filling the gaps and bringing a real geopolitical vision is what we are able to derive from all these years of work in Suriname. I thank you.
It might seem that I had a bit of an advantage being the last speaker, and I might have hurried up my brother there, but it wasn't that. I'm just trying to get as much time as we can towards an open discussion. My name is Ravi Deo. I am from Guyana. I had been in the United States for about 20 years, became a lawyer there. But as a Hindu, you look back as to from where you came. And as my sister said, we see ourselves first as, in her case, South African. I am Guyanese. Then I'm Indian. But at the core, there is a Hindu. That Hindu supersedes everything. It's like peeling an onion. And at the very core, there is Hindu and Hindutva. So in the United States, we saw what was happening. We have a great writer from the Caribbean, V.S. Naipaul. And Naipaul writes that when he writes, all he is thinking about, and whenever you read him, no matter how people may criticize V.S. Naipaul, he says that I worry about the unprotectedness of my people. The unprotectedness of my people. And I was in the United States in 1988. We organized the 150th anniversary of the arrival of the Indians in the Caribbean. And when we looked around, what was our state? What was our status? In Trinidad, Vasudeo Panday had been thrown out of power. In Guyana, Chedi Jagan had been thrown out of power. And over in Fiji, Jairam Reddy had been thrown out of power. In each of these countries, we were the majority. We played by the democratic rules. We achieved office, but we never had power. And it dawned on a few of us in America. We were making a good living, all of us, the American dream and all that. But it dawned on us that you had to do something about this because, and this is where all of us, no matter where we come from, when people see you, they look at you, you are an Indian. If you go across in America, you're not Gujarati or Tamil or Guyanese, you are an Indian. And therefore, you have to think like that, and you think of that unprotectedness wherever and everywhere we go. We did well economically in the Caribbean. As my brother said, within one generation after the end of indentureship in 1917, by 1929, 1935, we had the most doctors, the most lawyers. Through rice, we had transcended the sugar industry and all of that. But it goes to nothing. What was proven with our experience as Girmitias, if you don't have political power, it can all be taken from you, and it goes to naught. And you are scattered like chowar, as we say, rice, across the globe, and we have to flee. So right now you have half of the Hindus from Guyana. They are in America, United States, in New York, and in Toronto. Fijians are now in Australia and in Vancouver. The Surinamis are in the Netherlands. We have been scattered. So what do? Well, we organized in 1989 the Global Conference of People of Indian Origin. I was one, a similar panel like this. I was one of the co-chair of the Conference on Political Participation. And there were individuals from the ANC, I think it's Anil Sukhdev, who became ambassador to Brussels at one point, Ganesh Chand, who became Minister of Education in Fiji. And they were from all over Suriname. We came and we talked and we sat down. And it might be funny, I just want to give you a bit of light. I had a home in New Jersey at the time. And when we sat down, you know what bonded us all? We laugh at it. But all of us were bonded by the Bollywood songs. All of us could sing Muhammad Rafi and Mukesh, and you knew the song. That was in common. There were many differences. But the other thing that was in common, and not so funny, was that we were all a people without a strong vision of what to do politically. So some of us from my country, I went back, I remigrated to my country in 1989, and I have not worked since in a proper job in terms of, you know, what they call in corporate America. You have a job, you know, you go out to the office and you do that. I started to work in the Hindu community. But in 1998, there was an election with the Indian party won. The party that voted for Indians won. And they were beaten like dogs in the street in the Indian people of Guyana, and not a person said any word. They said riot, but he didn't mention that those who were beaten were Indians. It didn't matter whether you supported the ruling party, the opposition party, or what. Once you were an Indian, you were beaten, women were raped, and individuals were humiliated by all kinds of things. And at that point, even though at that point we had come back to the Caribbean and looked for a way of organizing, I was working in the Hindu community, and that is how I got in touch with the RSS Sangha, because they had a methodology. They had a methodology because what Dr. G had done in India was to look at how could the British rule us if we were so powerful and we have all this philosophy and what have you. It means that we had lost the qualities that was needed for that point in time. At different points of time, there are different qualities that are needed. So you have to study your circumstance, and you have to then get your people to be not only cognizant of those values, but to actually practice those values. And the RSS way of going about it through shakas made sense to me. In 1996, we had the RSS, we had our first Verg in Guyana. Ramanauji had gone to Suriname. We met, he was in Guyana first, because he had come back from Netherlands to do the same kind of work. But in 1998, after they beat these Indians, I got permission from HSS, because we do not mix politics and our work there, to enter politics, because somebody had to speak out. And we formed a party that for the first time in the Caribbean, at least in the British Caribbean, it was an overtly Indian party. We talked overtly as to what interests we were protecting, what interests we were concerned about. It is not that we were against anyone, but we would protect our own. We did it for a strategic reason, that your own party in this whole multicultural world that the West has created, somehow other groups can speak about themselves. But the moment an Indian or a Hindu speaks, you are communal, you are backward, and we have to overcome that. So we launched a party called the Rise, Organize, and Rebuild Guyana, ROAR, R-O-A-R. The name was deliberately provocative, that we were going to roar. Our motive was the jaguar. Again, you wanted to show strength, you wanted to project that, because we wanted to make a point that we are not going to take this lying down. And we were making that point not only to the other community that saw the Indian as interlopers, that saw us as somehow taking away what is theirs. We wanted to make it to the party that was in power also, because they took you for granted. Because since in communal societies, these parties, you vote for them automatically, they take you for granted. So the party intended to make a point and made it very strongly. What I would like to say is this, that I want to share this with you, those who may want to work in these Girmitia societies, that as my young brother said, I'm so proud that he has passed through the HSS training in Guyana, and he's representing it so ably in the political front. We also are attempting to do the same in Guyana. I am the Sangachalak of the HSS in Guyana. And we have a bunch of young people that we are motivating. There's also a Samiti that works with young women. Because I'll tell you my experience in politics. Because we work within a Western idiom, a Western framework, the West is caught with a model of politics that starts from a totally irrelevant principle and will always end up in problems. And what is that principle? I alluded to it in my initial remarks, which is that they speak of a society as being homogeneous, and therefore the kind of politics you play, you vote by interest. But the world is not homogeneous. Every Western country wants to be homogeneous. America, where I grew up, right? What pluribus unum, out of many one. You're supposed to become one, but it is not so. And Hindu philosophy, the basis of our society, is in Rig Veda, it says, Ekoham Bahusyam. Out of one, I make many, I create many. Diversity is the essence of what not only we humans are, it's the essence of what creation is. But in the West, they're trying to homogenize everything. So our task we see in Guyana, being a very plural society, is not to say, well, all of us have to be one, because the pressure on the Hindu in Guyana is to, you're so different. You have these weird customs, you're doing all these different weird things, they're strange. They teach Christianity in the school, but the Christianity is mapped, they teach Hinduism, but it's mapped onto into Christianity. So Christianity have a book, we have a book. They have a God, we have a God. It's like, so when you end up studying Hinduism, you're actually studying Christianity. Our task then in politics in Guyana is to come up with a model that accepts differences. The ethnic group will not go away. We Hindus will not go away. We should not have to go away. Those who set up the national anthem of my country, it says one people, one nation, one destiny. It's not going to be, and if you work from that premise, then it's going to lead you into a problem. Because if you are different, you are somehow creating trouble, because you're supposed to be one people. Why are you different? Why are you praying different from me? What are you doing these things? So you're seen as an outcast. So our thing in Guyana would be we have now tried to come up with a model, and we take from the Hindu Shastras and we modify it, because you're not going to go about talking in our how would I put it, our nomenclature and our naming process. So for example, one way America has handled diversity is through a federal structure of governance. Guyana is a unitary state. We say, well, since most Indians are in different parts of the country, Africans are in different parts of the country, if you have a federal structure, the winner will not take all. At least at the state level, different groups will have some power, right? The other, and out of this kind of thinking, we have made many proposals which are now being debated at a national level. They all come out of that fundamental principle of Hinduism, which is that difference is natural. Difference is what the world is. You start by accepting differences, and therefore your challenge is, how do I accommodate differences in the world I have found myself? And that is our mission right now in Guyana. Like we said, if you go into politics, which I did, and you try to rush it, because the HSS, we had the World Hindu Conference in 2000, And all the senior adhikaris were there. Ashok Singalji, Narendra Bhai was there. In fact, he came to Guyana and we spent some time in Guyana in 2000. I had met him before in 1993 at Vivekananda's centenary in Washington. He came and they all gave advice as to what we do because I had to get permission from the adhikaris to enter politics. So the point is they gave advice as to how to go about it. But the advice which we ignored through Ashok Singalji was that do not go into organization if you haven't created karyakartas. If you have not created the workers who understand this ideology, what you're doing all about, they will be seduced by power. They will be seduced by the dominant ethos of America because it's so much in the air. So the first thing to do, and that is why I've gone back to, after making my point, I was a member of parliament and what have you, went back at the grassroots, working at the grassroots, to create from small young boys and young girls who can now come out. When I go back in December, we're having what is called a Caribbean Baitak. Some members from Suriname will be coming up, Trinidad and Guyana. We will sit down to talk about what we do in the region, politically, socially, culturally, economically, what have you. So again, my advice to you, passed on through that great man, Ashok Singalji, is that before you embark on any type of activity like that, let us first have shakas, let us have that methodology. The specific qualities you may want to imbibe may differ from India. India has its own set of problems. For example, in Guyana, there's no Muslim-Hindu divide. In Guyana, because Indians are seen as the enemy, the Muslims have had to be in the same corner. My lieutenant was a Muslim, Salim Nazruddin, and because the external pressures were like that. So we have to take our principles, adapt them to your realities, and come up with a program. And I would like to end on the note my brother, my younger brother has passed on, which is that our work has to be within the context of a world Hindu movement that is very clear about its goals, that is very clear about its methodology, and is very clear as what it wants, where it wants to be. I want to be very blunt. India has never stood by its diaspora. From Nehru, in his discovery of India, he explicitly said that we were on our own. You have to take care of yourself over there. And since then has never really played that kind of role. I must say that Modi ji, in having last week extended a loan to the Fijian sugar industry, has made a strong signal, because sugar is the lifeblood still of the Indians of Fiji. It's a very, very strong signal that India will not step back anymore. And I think if we can all walk together and we can all stand together, we will achieve much. I thank you very much.
Introduce myself. My name is Surya Narayan. I come from Chennai, the southern part of India. I'm a wandering academic. We had three fascinating presentations from three great children or grandchildren of Mother India, and they illustrated the point that we cannot generalize about the people of Indian origin outside. The problem that they face, the challenges that they have to overcome, depends upon their numerical size, their educational attainments, and finally the majority-minority syndrome in the countries in which they have settled. And that came out very vividly. I want to raise two general points, and if there is time, one point specific to South Africa. The two general points is that the government of India and the media generally use the term diaspora for the people of Indian origin who are settled abroad. In legal terms, they are not one. There are people who have taken the citizenship of the countries in which they have settled. There are those who retain their Indian citizenship, as most of the people in West Asia and all. And there are stateless people who neither got the citizenship on the countries in which they live nor Indian citizenship. But the term diaspora is being used. I'm very unhappy with the term diaspora because it is Jewish in origin. The Jews, as a result of persecution, dispersed to different parts of the world, but wherever they went, they hankered for their homeland. There was a small Jewish community in my hometown, in Ernakulam in Kerala, and all of them, they migrated to Israel when Israel came into existence. But if you look at the people of Indian origin who are abroad, There are both pull and push factors. The push factor, famine condition in Madras Presidency, so people migrated to Ceylon, to Malaya, to Burma and all. There are pull factors, opportunities which are there. Now, Singhvi Committee report, the first study made on the people of Indian origin, uses the term Indian diaspora for all these people. I am very unhappy with the term. I would very much like our friends who have settled abroad, how they would like to be characterized. Would you like to have the term? Because the Indian diaspora essentially means transplantation of the Indian community abroad. Transplantation does not convey the whole truth. They retain certain forms of Indian culture, but they also adapt to the new surroundings. So that is one. The second one is that the present government, as well as the earlier government, have introduced this concept of dual citizenship. That is, you can be a citizen of Suriname and you can be a citizen of India. Personally, I feel that it is a dangerous proposition because citizenship means essentially loyalty to the country in which you live. I am an Indian citizen. My loyalty is to India. I pay my taxes. I obey the rules. You are a US citizen. You political loyalty to the United States. You obey the law of the country. The problem arises when there is a conflict of interest between the country in which you are settled and India. I'll give you the illustration. When the Second World War took place, the United States detained all the Japanese who were there in the United States at that time, because the United States government felt the Japanese will not be loyal to the United States, they will be loyal to Japan. In the case when the India-China war took place in 1962, there was a very small Chinese community in Calcutta. They were mainly involved in cobbler, they were shoe making and all those things. They had nothing to do with China. Years ago, but all of them, they were detained by the government of India. So if there is a conflict between the country.
If I might, if you would tighten the question, I
Yeah.
think we understand the context.
If there's a conflict between the country in which you live or which you are taken in India, then your loyalty will be suspect. Okay. So earlier, Narasimha Rao was very keen, no dual citizenship. You want long-term visa, you want to acquire property in India, you want educational property, I'll give. But dual citizenship, no. And the dual citizenship, according to me, will have dangerous implications. And I would love very much our friends from abroad to think of it and what they would like to be called. May I make one more point and then will there be time?
Could you, let's
I'll allow others.
get this to, because we have others who will have some questions.
Ask me the question.
The two questions are, the question, I'll pose the question. No, the questions are, one would be, how does the word Indian diaspora sit with us? That's the first one. I will pass it to you first.
Second one, what do they think of you?
Yeah, the conflict between, yeah.
Another question.
We are talking about Indians or we are talking about Hindus?
Huh?
Let us clarify, whether we are talking about Indians or we are
Right.
talking about Hindus.
Indians encompass Hindus.
Hindus, okay. Hindus, he's talking about Hindus.
I want that clarification. We are talking about Hindus, right? Hindus people around the world.
Yes.
I would like to make a point.
So that clarifies very clear. I mean, obvious.
Well, if I might, let the panelists answer, and then we will take comments.
I want to ask a question about.
Right, let's think. Your comment on the diaspora, are you comfortable with that notion? I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, I think, wandering academic, I share your views on both the issues. I'm a fourth generation in South Africa, fourth generation South African from India. Obviously, years and years ago, my great-grandparents were here. But I'm born and brought up in South Africa, so I'm a South African citizen. I am not dispersed from India into South Africa. So I share your view on that. And with regard to the dual citizenship, South African. It's as simple as that. My identity is South African. I am not part of the Indian diaspora. I was not transplanted there, and I didn't go there to come to my country as an indentured laborer. Born and brought up, so I'm seed of that country. With regard to the dual citizenship, I have been offered many times a PIO, Person of Indian Origin card, membership card. Every time the Indian Consul General does their, duties, their ambassador duties, they call us for these friendship dinners and so on and so forth. They're always making the point that I should take out the card. And again, I reject that. Not rejecting India, but simply my loyalty is to the country I was born in. I'm a member of parliament in that country. I'm a South African citizenship, and to hold dual citizenship means then I'll have one leg here and one leg there, and I must make up my mind about who I am. So I'm South African, and I have never accepted that card.
Ashwinji?
Yes, I just wanted to reply on this. Indeed, the question is put forth in the back also, that is comment on what are you talking about, Indian or Hindu? And indeed, this challenge of the Hindu civilization, just like I did in my speech, my own view of this is that we are talking about Hindus here. And through Hindu civilization coming from the Sindhus, through our Rishi and Munis, brought in a very clear statement by Veer Damodar Savarkar of Rashtra Dati Sanskriti, and broadened by the view of Vivekanand and what the character should be of this Hindu, and brought into practice by Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji. It is clear who we are. And in the view of Rashtra, just like I said, Rashtra Jati Sanskriti, in Rashtra it is cross-border. It is one big family. It is one civilization that can be anywhere in the world, but it's still Hindu. So this concept of being of a state, of a country, what its own jurisdiction and then this problem comes up with dual citizenship and the concept of diaspora. But in the concept of Hindu, we have never been dispersed. We are all the same from the beginning till now. We are still Hindus, and we are still one big community and Binstickin family. There is no separation in that. And so that's my own concept of writing this.
I just want to say that it shows you the training that the RSS provides for our brother can be able to give so eloquently an answer. And that is basically my answer also, that as a lawyer, an American trained lawyer, you're taught about who are you in terms of jus sanguinis, meaning your descent by blood, or jus solis, which is your descent by which country you're in, by land. And that's a very recent one. About 400 years ago, you were always counted. The Jews were Jews. Merchant of Venice, Shylock is a Jew. He was a Jew. You're judged by Jewish law. So the point is, this is a very recent innovation that we have gotten. And if we take it from a Hindu standpoint, from a civilizational ethos, at the core of our being, we must be Hindu. I was an American, so I'm now a Guyanese, American, but a Hindu at the end of it. As you peel that onion, it's Hindu. And if we have that, my daughter was asked that same question in the Caribbean. She had gone to a conference, and that's what she answered. When she wants to know, is it right or is it wrong? She says, what will a Hindu do under those circumstances? Okay. The other one would be the dual, I think we have answered that, the dual citizenship thing at the same time. What your second? Huh?
The whole idea of this sort of conference is to know each other. Where do we come from? And I should tell you that I come from London, and I'm the vice president of Overseas Friends of BJP. And we recently, last week, 17th and 18th of October, we had a very successful function in Queen Elizabeth II conference, like your Hyderabad house here, when Sushma Swaraji went there. We had many lords there. My point is, I know many people want to know, I'm glad you are using the word Hindu in England, UK. Do you know what is the problem? They are not used, where most of the crime is committed by the Pakistanis. I'm on the racial board of the London Borough, Redbridge. 47% of the prisoners are young Pakistani boys. And you can make out why are they there. Stealing cars, making accidents, chasing Hindu girls. And then it comes in the paper, Guardian, the Asian. And that we are fighting tooth and nail. Why do you call nation? When you know that they are Pakistanis. We should only use our word Indian and Hindus, not Asian. I'm glad this is you have been talking about. In fact, I attended first Hindu conference in August 2000 in Port of Spain, Trinidad. And there the Prime Minister started the conference with the Hanuman Chalisa, if you remember. Ashok Singhal was there. Narendra Modi, who is now the able Prime Minister, was just the secretary of BJP at that time, and we flew together from London. We were very good. That was so many Hindus came from so many tiny islands that this is the first time they were meeting together, and that sort of conferences can be very helpful if they are held there. So my question is, identity, Hindu, well then Indian Hindu, but not Asian, which is camouflage for other people. Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Just tell me a namaste, then we can start. Okay, thank you. I will introduce myself because everybody is telling about United States of America, Guyana, Mauritius, everywhere. I am coming from United Arab Emirates. The name is enough. You can understand what is the difficulty. And I am the president of Overseas Friends of BJP United Arab Emirates. And we are conducting public programs in UAE in the name of Overseas Friends of BJP. Thank you very much. My question is entirely different. We are just our session 1 is creating common platform, political platform. Actually, the speech, I'm just listening. Somebody is telling I am from South Africa, somebody is telling from India, somebody is asking whether I am an Indian or a Hindu. There is one only. So for me, I am an Indian. Of course I am a Hindu. India means Hindu. So there is no question whether it is I am a Hindu or an Indian. Hindu means it is Indian. Hindu nation means Indian nation. There is nothing else. So there is no question arise there. That is first one clarification I want to tell to all. I think you all will support that one point. My main question is
there are people in Bali who are Hindus. Are they Indians?
yes, of course, everywhere Indians. For me, it's everybody is Indian. Hindu means Indian for me.
Your question?
My question is common political platform. For example, Muslims, there is a political background is there. In any country, if you will go to India also, there are a link between UAE or GCC countries or Saudi everywhere. We don't have that one. We have to make a common platform. Whether we are making it or not, I don't know. But we have to make it. That is one of my suggestions. World over, a political background. We have HSS, that is correct. Because I am childhood onwards, I am an RSS Swayam Sevak. But we need a political alignment all over the world. Whether it is South Africa, whether it is in India, whether it is in that is required. Now Overseas Friends of BJP is that something else. But for Hindus, it is required for that one. That is a suggestion. Second one, now within 5 years maximum, all over the world, NRIs is going to get the votes. It's a huge challenge for Hindus. Because you know, GCC, especially GCC, it's a great number of Muslims is there. They are not going to vote for Hindus. There is no doubts at all. Because I am getting, up to last 6 months, CADS is calling me and asking, what is your plan? What is your next plan? I don't know, I don't have any plans. I want to serve the society, that's all. That's my plan. So this huge number of vote is going to come to India. So if this, how we are going to handle that one? That is my second question. It's a serious question because within 5 years in the Lok Sabha as well as the Assembly, whatever we will tell, it is going to affect our Indian political scenario. So how we are going to counter that one? Third question, especially for this part of Muslim part, GCC and all over the world, we are the real NRIs. We will not get any citizenship there. We are always Indian.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me pose a question then.
Yeah.
if I
So
might.
for them, how the political climate, Hindu political climate, working it's difficult. How you are going to establish that one? These three questions. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Well, I'll be guided by our leader here. How do I do? I thought we were getting questions. So
Idea is to have questions and also a discussion, but not to have things monopolized, because that's the reason we have 3 speakers and then we have audience. Speakers, audience. We do want interactiveness, but we would like to see questions come in, and I'm sure there are people who still have questions because I have a question, but I'll keep mine to the last because that's not my prerogative. So I have a
Okay.
gentleman with the mic there.
Right. I would like all panelists, also those of the next session, in fact, but especially the one from South Africa, whether you encounter this problem of a change of discourse regarding the race question in terms of the caste system. You know, you mentioned that under apartheid there were different beaches for whites, for Indians, and so on. And now we smile at this, but you see, in India, until very recently, there was also Hindu pani and Muslim pani being sold in the railway stations and so on. And so, you see, whereas problems like slavery, institutional racism, and so on are receding into the past, the West, especially the Christian churches, have discovered, you see, the caste system as what they call a modern form of racism, because you are determined by birth, you know, born into a caste, and it presupposes inequality. Or at least that's what they say. Now, in Britain, the gentleman from Britain can certainly clarify. This is very acute, you know, with the House of Lords discussing caste and so on as a form of discrimination. And even the European Parliament wants to take it up and so on. So, is this a problem that you people do encounter?
If I might take a stab at that initially, I find it rather ironic that the House of Lords should talk about caste. I mean, they're the lords. You just become a lord like that. So I think it's rather ironic, and it's part of what the British, how they hegemonized us. They pick on certain situations in India, and then, as we know, and there's been research done on that in academic in terms of caste and their ossification of caste in how they had their census done and what have you. But I want to say that you see it's an evolving thing. For example, in Guyana, and I would like my sister and brother to talk about it, caste is no more. So caste has been, and all categories are fluid categories. So in my situation, there is none in terms of Guyana.
No, the same is the situation in Suriname. We don't talk about that. There is no clear distinguishment you can make now on caste in Suriname. It's just some do divide the Hindu society in Sanatani and Arya Samaji, but that is more a religious differentiation that may make. But indeed, on that we don't have any real concerns or challenges that we are facing right now.
I would just let me take a step back to answer the Hindu-Indian question. From a South African perspective, on Sunday we celebrated 154 years since the indentured laborers came to South Africa. Those were Indians and they were all Hindus. So in South Africa the term is synonymous. However, I would say over the past few years, with the conversion of some Indians to Christianity, that now falls away, I think, in a sense. And it's only one sector of the Hindus in South Africa, the Tamils, the Telugus, the Hindis, and the Gujaratis make up the Hindu. And it's only the Tamil community that succumbed to Christianity. So, sir, I don't know if that answers you. With regard to the Asian issue, in South Africa again, in the apartheid era, we were classified into 4 race groups. And all your forms, no matter what, whether it was for a job or university or anything, you had to put your race. And at one stage, it was Asian. And then, at that time, the Natal Indian Congress said, but we are not Asian. We are Indian. Asian is Chinese, Japanese, Korean. So that change has come. Now when you are required to indicate your race, and that's still something that's problematic, you are put there as Indian. Okay. To answer your questions with regard to the caste system, as I said, the Indians in South Africa were more Indian than India themselves. And the caste system some 35, 40 years ago prevailed very strongly. I'm Hindi, and I wanted to get married to a Gujarati. And that was 35, 36 years ago. I cannot tell you the snot and drama there was about that. It was a duck and dive situation. It was a situation where I thought I was going to be chucked out of my home and not be accepted in that home. That's how bad it was. Anyway, it had a happy ending, and we got married. And I'm glad to tell you that the caste system does not prevail in South Africa anymore in the Indian community. It prevails in the Muslim community. And now no more when there's a proposal do we ask, so what caste are you, and are you Brahmin or Tailor or whatever it is. To the young man, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Ramesh. The political platform for all Indian MPs was actually started about 15 years ago, and then it just died a death. So when you spoke about it, it reminded me, because I was a pretty new MP, and I remember that we had this meeting, India had organized it, and it was in Mauritius, and all Indian MPs, no matter what political party or persuasion you were of, we came together, and it was a very good effort, but as I said, it died, and perhaps President Modi will do something about it. But thank you so much.
Oh, sorry, he was one of them.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make one remark, and this is when you ask the question, who is a Hindu? Then these uncertainties go away. You see, that's why I urge you to read Damodar Savarkar. And in his conception, when he says Rashtra, Jati, Sanskriti, or the three requisites, but that is broadened in the Vivekananda and the Shivaji Fury. Why I said that? In the concept of Damodar, and when he analyzed this anthropological fact that these were the requirements to be Hindu, and then he broadened the view by saying, even Mother Teresa was a Hindu. And he said, Sister Nivedita was a Hindu. And all the Muslims are Hindu. And then he said if you have all these requisites, because in one bloodline you would see, going back to the rishis, who became Muslim when they came here, when the Mughals came in, were all from the same bloodline going back to this Hindu. So the jati requirement was there. And he said, the Rashtra concept that across borders, one big family, one big community is there. The feeling that we are one with the Muslim community is there. But the only thing that was clashing was the Sanskriti component. Though they respect the mandirs or traditions and everything, and or rishis and munis, and or Shivaji was bold to say, if they respect what the other communities, the whole community of Hindus, consisting of Jain, Buddha, Sikh, everybody, and respecting the traditions, they are also Hindu. And then comes the concept when you say India. If Hindu is, an Indian is Hindu, and Hindus are Indians, it is because the broad view of Hindu in respecting all the culture and having these requisites is in place. If these are in place, then you don't have this discussion of Indian and Hindu. So this whole discussion of caste also leaves, and it is very easy for our Muslim brethren who are mostly Hindu by heart, and Hindu in rational sense also. But does the whole community and their top levels, you'd say in the ritualistic sense, the Maulana and Imams, do they accept that? If they accept that they are Hindus, like Shivaji and his Raj, masjids and mandis would be next to each other, there was no problem. So that is one thing that I wanted to make. And on the common political platform issue, of course you are right. And if I hear now that there has been a political platform, the Vishnu Parishad, and as one family, that's why I said this contradicted term is what we call the contradiction that there is. Although we have this broad view of who a Hindu is, even that Mother Teresa was a Hindu, and because she has these requisites, then you would say, on the one side, I would say, I just forgot the last, oh yeah, the common political platform. On the one side you have that we see a Hindu broad as a broad vision of who Hindus are and that we are all Hindus. But in our own countries, then the differentiation comes. Then you have to fill in a form, what race are you? Or what religion are you? There the problem comes, because that's why I say a clear geopolitical vision would give the other side, the other communities, the clear vision of who we really are, and that you cannot fill a form in which you place your race as Hindu or as Indian or as Asian, because civilization is a much broader concept than that. And so if you had to put religion, you could put Sanatan Dharma, you could put Arya Samaj. If you had to put race, what would you put? You would put Hindu. That's the most near to what you could say. So these are the challenges when you come to a national and a community, then you have the challenge. But in our view, in a world view, there's no discussion on this, or on national level. So
This is general back. Oh, this lady. Let's have the lady. Let's have the lady. Yeah.
No, I think he's been waiting for some time. You've been waiting for some time. Okay, I think I'll just make it very quick. Well, I'm also from the United Arab Emirates, from Dubai, and I'm the Overseas Friends of BJP General Secretary there. And I just have two questions. I actually am confused when he asked that question, Indian and Hindu and all that, because according to the RSS, I feel that, or what I believe is that Hindu means a person who has allegiance to our territory, that is India. Whether you say as Akhanda Bharat or whatever. It isn't, is it?
No, the concept of Rashtra.
Because I've heard Ram Madhav ji come on television and talk in a debate in that way. Hindu means a person who stays in India. That is why you call a Hindustani.
in the Sangha Parivar, and in the Sangha, you have this book called by Madhav Sadashiv Golwar. It's Madhav Sadashiv Golwar. It's clearly presented. Bunch of thoughts, but there's another book.
Okay,
And
just
there it is clearly put that Rashtra, the concept of Rashtra, is not by geographical borders.
Okay, just one more question of mine. It's really nice to see that there's no caste system followed in the other country. The caste system is followed in India. Basically, I'm from Kerala, and in Kerala, the castes are like the Hindu is divided as Nair or Irava or whatever. And because of this, a lot of disadvantages are happening. We are not getting all the votes for Hindus. The money what goes to the temples, they're taken by the government, whereas the Christian church or the Muslim mosque use it for their community. But our Hindu money is being used by the government to send Muslim people for pilgrimage, for Hajj, So what can we do really to bring that in India, not outside India, in India? That is my question.
I think this is a challenge that Sangha is every day busy with, the Shakas. Every day we have this challenge.
Thank you. I am Ramesh Harilal Mehta from Mumbai, Bharat. I have been an RSS Swayamsevak since childhood, since 1947, before independence. I have seen the independence and everything of our country. One thing I would like to clarify. First of all, let us not call, since you are out, see, the very word India was given by Britishers. They are no more here. Earlier also we had our name, Bharat or Hindustan. We should go ahead with that. That's my suggestion. That's my request to all. Then, as far as, see, Hindu is not at all a community, it is a way of life. So everyone can call Hindu by way of life. But if you stick to your religion, then yes, we are all Hindus. One small incident I would like to elaborate. If you don't mind, if you can give me 2 minutes. And if it's not possible, then forget it. I don't mind. But then you people also should know the history of Bharat, which many people do not know. And that's why this time, Sangh has been very much after Education Ministry to teach the correct history of this country. Gentlemen, you said Damodar Swatantra Veer Vinayak Damodar Samar. Please, VD Savarkar. So correct it. It's Vinayak Damodar Savarkar.
Yes, I call him Veer because that was his by name.
Yeah, but the Veer Savarkar, but you can't call Veer Damodar. Yeah. It's Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. Anyway, that's okay. Now, it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate in our country that Muslims living in this country, They know very well that their forefathers were Hindus. Because politically they were pampered. Now we are talking about politics. So obvious, something of politics will come here. Politically they were pampered by a particular ruling party, and that created the whole issue in this country. As we say, don't pamper anyone, don't favor unnecessary anyone, but favor the right things. So once Mahatma Gandhi ji attended RSS camp in 1934, when Dr. Ji was very much alive. He just attended the camp. He was invited by Pujani Dr. Ji. Mahatma Gandhi had started Jati Bhed Nashta Karo. There should be, and Savarkar ji also had started, there should be a casteless society. So let us not talk about community, my community, his community. We have a casteless society. We are all Hindus, whether we, no upper Hindu, no lower Hindu. We should never think that, no east, no west. Everything is best. We should go ahead there. That's my request, that's my suggestion. And last, please, give me a little time.
Wow.
Believe me,
No,
you will not lose anything. You'll get something.
No, from 1947, we owe you that to you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. In 1934, Mahatma Gandhi ji attended one Hemanta Shibir of RSS in Varda. He asked some Swayamsevaks, what is your community? He just Swayamsevak got up and said, I am a Hindu. He asked another, second person. He said, I am a Hindu. Third person, he said, I am a Hindu. Then fourth Swayamsevak said, don't ask this question repeatedly, please. Not only me, whoever is staying in this country is a Hindu by way of life and has to follow Hinduism by way of life, by, say, culturally. So we should always take it that way. And we need to enlighten Muslims in this country that your forefathers were Hindus. You don't inherit from Mughals. And one secret organization started in Hyderabad, I further tell you. They started to find, they tried to find out who are original Mughals. There are only 3 lakh members out of so many crores Muslims living in this country.
Okay, thank you very
That
much.
is the main. Thank you very much.
But on that note, I just want to share this with you. This is real practical politics now. What I want to emphasize is that in each of the overseas communities or countries that we will find ourselves, we cannot make these hard and fast rules. As I said, in Guyana, politics is practiced in the West where we live, and the whole world, like I said, practices that system, is a question of numbers. So in Guyana, my party, which was a Hindu party, was aligned with Muslims because it was not because they probably liked us or anything. It was in their interest, because when they were beaten, when Indians were beaten, they couldn't say, well, I'm Muslim, don't beat me. So I think it's a matter of context. So I would say deal with your own situation, because all politics, unless we're the great majority, is the politics of coalitions. So we should know, yes, we are Hindus. And what I can tell you this in Guyana, the stronger you were as a Hindu, the more they respected you. Not only the Muslims, but in the parliament, the Africans who are our political competitors. When I went to parliament, the same thing, I swore on a Bhagavad Gita for the first time, and I said, even though between me and you I eat chicken, I told them, no meat, and they would run and give me vegetarian food. They respect you. So once you are a strong Hindu, our problem is that as Hindus, we fall for anything. We don't stand up and say, I am Hindu, and these are my things. That was my advice, sorry. I think
We are coming up on time. You had one last word.
Your Indian is Hindu, Hindu is Indian. Now, so many Westerners are taking up Hinduism. You're putting yourself in a box. If you're not Indian, you can't be Hindu. I think that's wrong. Whoever said that. That's absolutely. Because you have to be, Hinduism is always has been open arms. We invited in India, you invited Parsis, you invited Syrian Christians, you invited the Sufi Muslims, you invited everybody. How come you can say all of a sudden, oh, you have to be Indian, you have to be a Hindu? It's not right. You should be open. So many Westerners are taking up Hinduism. In America alone, there are more than 20 million people practice yoga and meditation. Mentally, they are Hindu. I mean, they may not practice Hinduism, but they are. But all over Europe, like that too. So let's keep open mind and let's welcome everybody into Hindu fold. I think the right definition Dr. Swami made was India is a nation of Hindus or their ancestors are Hindu. I think that's the way we should be going around. I think.
Yes.
But thank you very much. Think about what we've learned today.
Just one on the caste issue that you said. You see, I agree with that. We already had this discussion about Hindu view, that in that Hindu view, these discriminators and these borders just fall away. But in the old philosophy, if you talk about adhikar bhed and the division of labor, even in the modern context, that's not relevant anymore. You see, because you have engineers, you have medical doctors, you have so many labor divisions that even in a new vision of, if you would do adhikar bhed and bhed of adhikar and bhed and division of labor, it is not relevant anymore. So the casteless society, it is already be taking form, and it is only backwards to think about caste in the way that it was in the old system. While in practice, the shura, it is maybe there, but in fact, de facto, it is already changed the whole system, and in fact, it does not even exist anymore. And of course, the broad view on who the Hindu is, and I think our literature, our rishis, and our pracharaks of Sangha have clearly put that forward, that there are more Hindus in the world than we think we are only here as Hindus today, where we sit, we be as a family together. World is very broad, and the broad vision makes them Hindu. That's the fact. Thank you.
Santosh has the last word.
In conclusion, first of all, let me appreciate the questions and your audience here. To the gentleman at the back, when this gentleman asked me a question, I thought to myself, I had said in South Africa what the perception is about Indians being Hindu, but I assume this is a white man practicing Hinduism. And your point is well taken, that there are people from other Westerners who practice Hinduism, and we should not place ourselves in a box. I thank you for your input.
Well, as I said, I was looking forward to learning. I didn't know I would learn so much. South Africa, I felt, no, seriously, Santosh, I learned a lot about the history, and I really thank you for that because you educated me. Guyana, Ravi, I admire you. You know, I'm based in the United States, pursuing the American dream. Got trapped in the American dream, but you got it and you left. So I really admire and I learned. I have some friends in Guyana, which I'll talk to you separately about. And Suriname, the passion that you've displayed, tremendous. And fabulous questions about UAE and all kinds of other things. So I would say, Ravi, did I deliver on the audience though?
You said it.
Okay, thank you.
I know you did it.
And this is not hotel staff, by the way. This is not paid audience, as people say. But anyway, I think our speakers really deserve a good round of applause, and so do the questioners. And Ravi, for moderating it, thank you so much. And please, there is some time afterwards. I know you have a lot of questions, Hindu, India, Hindu. I think you can nab them, we'll close the doors. But anyway, we have a break till 4:15. We have a great session planned for my part of the world, US, the Western initiation, etc. So please at least show up, because they think this is the kind of audience they are going to get to. So thank you again so much.